There was a spoon in the sink. A small, ordinary, silver spoon with a faint scratch on the handle, the kind you'd never notice unless you were used to washing it every morning for 13 years. But that Tuesday, I noticed. Because I hadn't made coffee. And Delia doesn't drink coffee at home. I stood there in my socks, staring at it like it didn't belong in our kitchen. Like it had been dropped from someone else's morning into mine. I didn't touch it. Just stood still. The sun was barely up, and the kitchen smelled like oranges and detergent, and for some reason, I knew. Not everything, but enough. Let me back up. My name is Wendell. I work in logistics for a regional grocery chain. My life is beige, predictable, and, until recently, quiet. My wife, Delia, works in insurance underwriting. She reads medical thrillers and alphabetizes our spices. We don't fight. We don't slam doors. We just exist. Or we did. Lately, she had started humming again. Delia only hums when she's in love. The last time she hummed like that, we were still painting the guest room and arguing about which rug matched the trim. But in the past few weeks, her songs returned like clockwork. Soft, careless melodies under her breath while she chopped onions or folded laundry. She was humming again. But not to me. And the spoon? That wasn't mine. That same evening, after dinner, salmon and couscous, still warm on our plates, she stood up, wiped her mouth, and said it like she was ordering new dish towels. I think we should divorce. I looked up. No tremble in her voice. Her wine glass half full, untouched. I didn't ask why. I didn't flinch. I just nodded and said, okay. Because I knew something she didn't. She thought I'd be wrecked. She thought I'd spiral, beg, break. But what Delia didn't know, what she couldn't possibly guess, is that 3 weeks ago, I found her second phone in the glove compartment of her car. And I had read everything. Her messages to a man named R. The hotel bookings. The photograph in the bathroom mirror, his hand on her waist, her wedding ring turned inward. I hadn't confronted her. Not yet. Because Delia may have wanted a divorce, but I was the one already packing her bags. And not in the way she expected. The day after she said the word divorce, Delia baked banana bread. She never bakes. I watched her move through the kitchen like nothing had happened, measuring flour, mashing the overripe bananas we usually throw away, humming that same low tune under her breath. She even asked me if I wanted walnuts in mine. I said sure. I didn't eat any of it. Instead, I spent most of the morning testing something. We have a bookshelf in the hallway. 6 shelves. 58 books. Arranged alphabetically by author's last name, because that's how Delia likes it. Always has. She calls it mental order. I call it habit. That morning, I moved 3 of them. Nothing big. Just enough to break the system. I took Frost and put him beside Caldwell. Shifted Oats behind King. Quiet sabotage. A soft kind. She walked past the shelf 5 times that day. Never flinched. She wasn't herself anymore, or maybe this was herself, just someone I'd never really met. A woman who wore her old wedding sweater like it still meant something, while texting someone named R, in a language full of emojis and code names. I didn't speak much. I didn't change my routine. I let her believe I was still trying to process it. She seemed disappointed by my calmness. That night, she went to bed early. I stayed in the living room, lights off, and listened through the wall as her second phone buzzed once, then again. Long pauses between each. I imagined his name on the screen, something forgettable like Ryan or Ronnie. Something soft. I took a deep breath. She didn't know I'd already copied the full backup from her second phone to my own laptop. She didn't know I had the receipts, the voice notes, even a 32-second video she'd recorded of herself, smiling, whispering something to him, wearing my t-shirt. None of this made me feel angry. Not anymore. What I felt was precision. Like every step I took now had weight. Like I was carving something slowly, and she was the wood. Every word I didn't say was part of the sculpture. Delia asked for a divorce. And I gave her silence. Because silence is the one language she never learned to read. The only thing she said to me that morning was, "Did you sleep okay?" I told her I did. I didn't. She left the room in slippers and a cardigan she hadn't worn in months, one with a snagged thread on the sleeve. It hung unevenly, like it didn't belong to her body anymore. Like maybe even she didn't belong to her body anymore. Later, I noticed she had changed the password to our joint bank account. Not the one she uses for groceries, the real one. The one with savings. The one with my father's inheritance still sitting untouched, gathering slow, passive interest. I logged in like I always did, and the screen blinked red. Incorrect password. Try again. I tried twice more. No luck. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I opened a fresh account at a credit union near my office during my lunch break. No joint access. No digital trail. Transferred a slow drip of cash, just enough that it wouldn't trigger anything immediate. Just enough to build a private current under the still surface of our shared life. That same afternoon, I mailed a letter. Not an email. A letter. I printed it from work on cream paper with no return address. I sent it to her mother. Short, factual, polite. It simply read, Delia and I are separating. I'll be moving out sometime soon. I'd appreciate discretion. That night, Delia ordered Thai food and added a movie to our queue. Something foreign with subtitles, the kind she used to watch when she still wanted to impress me. She sat beside me on the couch. Our knees didn't touch. She didn't ask about my day. I didn't ask about hers. We just sat there, chewing silently, watching people on the screen make decisions we used to care about. After she fell asleep, I checked her phone. Not the second one, the original. Her clean phone. She'd left it charging in the kitchen, unlocked. Whether it was forgetfulness or arrogance, I didn't know. There was a message to someone saved as M. Just one line. I think he's pretending not to care. She wasn't wrong. But she had no idea what pretending meant to a man like me. I was 12 years old when I learned how to keep secrets. When my father lost his job and told me not to tell Mom. When my brother stole from our neighbor's garage and said he'd deny it if I spoke up. I learned early that silence doesn't just hide things, it controls them. Delia thought she was holding the cards. But I was already rewriting the game. It took me 11 minutes to pack what I needed. I didn't take the tools. Not the sockets that I'd inherited from my grandfather. Not the folding workbench I spent 2 summers building by hand. Not even the old cigar box of screws and nails I kept, just in case. I left all of it behind. Instead, I opened one drawer, pulled out a plain black duffel, rolled 3 shirts, 1 pair of jeans, socks, a toothbrush, a passport, and the folder. That was it. The folder contained the only thing she'd never think to look for: photocopies of every receipt she thought she deleted, every text from her hidden phone, every petty digital footprint she left behind like it didn't matter. Most men keep evidence in anger. I kept it in silence. For the record. For myself. I left during the afternoon, not in the dark. No dramatics. No long note on the counter. Just an email, scheduled to send at 4:01 p.m. Delia. The divorce is fine. You can keep the house. The car's in your name now. This was already over. W. The only real decision I made that day was about the photograph in the hallway, the one of us from Asheville, 2013. I remember that trip. I remember she wore a wool hat even though it wasn't cold. I remember thinking I'd never love anyone more. I took it down, removed the frame, slipped the photo into my bag. It wasn't sentiment. It was documentation. A reminder of a version of me I no longer intended to carry. By 4:15, I was gone. No goodbye. No slam doors. I didn't even lock the garage. I knew what would happen next, the confusion, then the suspicion, and eventually the panic. But I wouldn't be there for any of it. And that was the point. She had asked for separation. She thought it meant I'd rent an apartment nearby, give her time to process, and come crawling back to negotiate terms. She didn't expect disappearance. She didn't expect no fight. Because Delia always assumed that her leaving would define the ending. But when she came home that evening and found silence, real, unreturnable silence, she'd realized something else entirely. I didn't just accept her leaving. I'd already beaten her to it. She didn't call. She messaged. 4 times in the first hour. 2 more later that night. Then none. A silence longer than either of us had ever agreed to. The first message read, "Where are you?" The last one just said, "Did you seriously leave like that?" I didn't read the others. I didn't need to. By the time her words reached my phone, I was 200 miles away, in a town with a name she'd never heard and a motel room paid for in cash. The lamp beside the bed flickered slightly. The floor creaked. The walls smelled like mildew and forgotten furniture polish. It was perfect. Back at the house, she'd found the car. Found the bank accounts emptied just enough to raise questions without breaking alarms. Found her keys still hanging by the back door. Her slippers undisturbed. Her laptop untouched. Everything looked the same. Except me. Except that I wasn't part of the picture anymore. Delia never expected to be alone with the life she built without me. She thought she could walk away slowly, while I stood frozen, waiting to bargain for her version of closure. But I didn't wait. The morning after I left, she tried to log into our shared calendar. I had erased myself from it. She tried to access my photo drive. Password changed. She called my manager. He told her I'd taken leave. Personal. Indefinite. No details given. She texted again, finally something longer. I think we need to talk. This doesn't feel right. But talking would require a language we no longer shared. By then, I had a prepaid SIM, a new email, and no forwarding address. There were no friends she could ask. I had already spoken to them weeks before, carefully, quietly, severing each tie in private. Not with drama. Just distance. Her control relied on me reacting. But there was no one left to perform for her. Delia had wanted a divorce. Now she had what came after one, the echo. The stretch of days where the fridge hums louder than conversation. Where the walls don't answer when you speak. She'd sit at the table we once bought on credit. Stir coffee in the mug I always used. Open the mail and find bills in her name alone. And each time she asked herself why I didn't fight. She'd hear nothing back. Because I wasn't proving anything. I was gone. She wore my shirt for 3 days. Not because she missed me, but because she expected something to happen when she did. That's how Delia operates, small rituals to summon attention. The shirt. The framed photo turned sideways on the nightstand. The plate of untouched pasta left out longer than it should have been. But nothing happened. No knock. No call. No note. And each time she walked past the hallway mirror, she glanced sideways, like she expected to see something over her shoulder. Like maybe I'd be there again, tying my shoes, checking my watch, asking if she wanted tea before bed. But there was nothing behind her. And the mirror didn't lie. She called my sister. My sister told her, politely, I don't think he wants to be found right now. Delia asked where I'd gone. My sister said, wherever he is, I doubt he brought anything you can recognize. Delia tried a few more people after that. Old friends. An ex-colleague. Even our dentist, for reasons I don't pretend to understand. No one gave her what she wanted. Because by the time I left, I had already emptied myself from the edges of her world, the casual overlaps, the shared appointments, the favorite grocery brand, the socks in the dryer, the phone charger in the car. Each little exit was intentional. Not revenge. Just removal. I imagine her now, standing in the kitchen at dusk, lights off, fridge open, letting the cold air spill out for no reason. The hum of the compressor the only sound. A bag of grapes in her hand, uneaten. Not crying. Not calling. Just still. That was the hardest part to explain to anyone. Delia didn't fall apart. She dissolved. She started sleeping with the light on in the hallway. Began folding laundry she hadn't worn. Rearranged the kitchen drawers twice. Set the table for 2, then ate in silence while one place sat empty. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to summon me. Like I was still somewhere close. Like I was a thought she could drag back from the edge of her mind and place into a chair across from her. But I wasn't a thought anymore. I was the absence that had a shape. And it no longer fit in her house. It arrived in a white envelope. No return address. My name written by hand, still her handwriting, though a little sharper than I remembered. Less curved. Inside was a card. Nothing romantic. Just a clean invitation printed on stiff paper. You're welcome to come by. Friday at 7. Just talk. Nothing else. There was no punctuation. She always avoided periods when she didn't want to sound final. I didn't respond. She sent nothing else after that. But that Friday, just before 7, I let myself imagine it, not to entertain her request, but to study it. I pictured her lighting the same candles she used when her parents visited. I imagined her putting 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, brushing the couch with her palm to smooth the cushion. I imagined the mirror check, the hair adjustment, the moment before the doorbell didn't ring. Because it didn't. I wasn't coming. Not because I hated her. Not because I had someone new. Not because I needed closure. But because I had already been erased from the script she was trying to write, and showing up would have made her believe it still existed. I knew she didn't want me. She wanted a witness. Someone to observe her pain and confirm it was real. Someone to stand there while she turned suffering into a story, one where she still got to be the main character. But I wouldn't give her that. And that's what undid her. Not my leaving. Not my silence. The fact that no one was watching. After that night, she stopped messaging. Not because she was over it, but because she understood the final rule of this game. You can't pull someone back who has already left without being chased. And I wasn't chasing anything. Not her voice. Not her guilt. Not her shadow. That night, she cleared the table by herself. And when she turned off the lights, no one noticed but her. I never told anyone where I went. There's no dramatic reason. No new lover. No reinvention. Just space. A small rented room above a bookshop in a town with one blinking stoplight and a diner that closes at 3. I work mornings unloading trucks. It's not glamorous. No one asks about my past. I eat lunch with a man named Cyrus who talks mostly about baseball stats and birds. And that's enough. Some evenings I walk to the edge of the lake, just as the sun slips behind the tree line. I don't think about her much anymore. When I do, it's not anger. It's not sorrow. It's more like remembering someone I used to pass on my way to work. Familiar, but no longer relevant. One afternoon, weeks after the last message, I saw her name pop up in an old inbox I hadn't checked. Just one line. I understand now. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not because I was bitter, but because I didn't need to. She was finally talking to herself. And that was good. Because this wasn't about punishment. This was about release. She had asked for distance. She had asked for her own life. And I gave her both completely. Without negotiation. Without resentment. I gave her exactly what she claimed she wanted. But I took something too. I took back the space in my own mind. The place where I used to rehearse arguments, replay silences, rewatch memories like they still mattered. Now that space is quiet. Not empty. Just quiet. I've started painting again. Nothing profound. Just color and texture and motion on canvas. Some of it makes no sense. Some of it looks like sky. I don't know if anyone would call it art. But when I step back and look at what I've made, I always think the same thing. This was mine. I built it. No one else touched it. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough.